Thank you for joining us on Jennylyn Show, formerly known as Give It a Name with Jennylyn. I have asked in the past if you would write to me and tell me what you think the show should be called, and the overwhelming response has been for me to rename this show after myself. So, welcome to Jennylyn Show. Today, I have a great show for you, and my guests are Miss Carolyn Hoskins, who is in charge of the NFL Alumni, as in the football players, and also Mr. Floyd Burrell, sorry.
That's okay.
And he is a substance abuse counselor. And so today, I think you get where this show is going, and I will begin by asking Mr. Burrell to introduce himself.
Hello everyone, my name is Floyd Burrell, and I am a substance abuse counselor here throughout San Mateo County. I'm also an individual who have been in recovery, so I'm very familiar with this field and love doing what I do.
Great. Carolyn?
I am on the board of directors for the NFL Alumni, and how I got involved, my husband, Bob Hoskins, was a former 49er, and my husband died in 1980, and I became involved because our motto is caring for kids, and he loved kids, and so this is what I'm doing in his memory.
Great. Well, you know, that's the one thing we all have in common, because I'm all about kids also. Being one of many myself, and then having two of my own, I see there's a need in the world now for us to direct our energies toward encouraging kids. There are so many elements in the world now that are distracting, and not all in the best way. Social media, although it's intended for good, from time to time has been abused in ways that's not really beneficial to children. If anything, young people, it's been detrimental. And so I would like to start off with you, Floyd, and ask you, you said you're also recovering yourself. How are you able to reach kids today?
I truly believe through my own personal experience.
Okay.
Growing up in San Francisco and the inner cities, running the streets and struggling in school, coming from divorced parents, I'm familiar with a lot of what our kids are going through today. But also having kids myself, you know, who grew up with these students and these other kids in school, that's how I feel I can identify. I am circled around them all the time.
Okay. And so Carolyn, how do you work with Floyd to help the kids? And where are some of the places you go to meet them?
Well, Floyd and I connected when we started through the NFL Alumni. We started a program at Ralston Middle School. It was a young girl there, Irma Perez, that was 14, and she died of a drug overdose of ecstasy, the very first time that she had tried it. And so we wanted to educate the kids about preventing things to be able to do in situations like this. And I connected with Floyd because of his experience and of how he is able to connect with other children.
Wonderful. This is really great. So you were in the situation that you're now encouraging and educating kids on preventing themselves from getting into.
Yes.
What got you to the place where you ended up you needed help, that you got the help and came out of the program, and now you're an educator yourself? What got you to the place where you needed to go out and get help, or was somehow discovered in need of help and got the help?
What got me to that place is, ironically, the same situations I went through as a child, having divorced parents. I, as a married individual, divorced my wife, and here are my children coming from the same environment. So I had to reflect on how detrimental that was for me, and I was given an ultimatum. You know, either I can get some help and do something different, or if I continue down this path, then I'm going to lose everything I ever wanted. So the blessing for me, it was a push from someone I cared about, someone who cared about me. And once I got sober, the individuals around me just felt I had a gift to give to others. And I wouldn't pursue that for about 2 years. And then a counselor told me, you know what, Floyd, you really should go to school, get your certificate, and really start working in treatment. And that was 13 years ago. 13 years ago, and I've been doing this for close to 14 years. So it's a blessing that someone saw in me that I couldn't see in myself. And that's how I feel I relate to the kids. We see in the children what they don't see in themselves. And just a little push, a little nudge, a little encouragement, a little identity helps them go a long way.
It's really great because you took your experience, you learned from it, and now you're sharing from both sides of the fence and encouraging people. Now, Carolyn, you were married to a 49er, and bless his soul, he's no longer with us. But you have been privy to a lot of people who probably didn't come from the same situation Floyd just described that led him down that road. For example, you have been around 49er players who've had, a lot of them, opportunity, obviously, because they got to play on professional teams. But yet you saw the similar type problems within that environment.
Well, you know, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, the kids look up to athletes. And the athletes really, they're human also. So I had met several of the athletes who had had problems with drug abuse. One of them in particular, Eason Ramson, who has a tremendous story. And the kids look and they see, well, you know, here is a person that had everything, was on the very first Super Bowl team, all of the money and everything that is glorified with being a superstar, but yet he struggled. And at one point, he had $1,000 a day drug addiction.
Oh my God.
So the kids are really fascinated because one of the things that we have to learn is give kids credit for being able to know when you're being honest with them and when they can really trust you. And just be upfront, tell them exactly how it is. Don't try and sugarcoat it because that's what they want. They want to be able to trust you because all during their life as it is now, their parents and other people have made excuses and sugarcoated things for them, so they've kind of lost trust. And so it's so beneficial when you're able to look up at this athlete, and this athlete can tell you the things that you're thinking. I thought the same thing, and this is what happened to me. I spent 10 years of my life in San Quentin prison.
Gee, I personally I have no experience with drugs, and so all I know of it is what I see on the news. And I remembered when I first arrived in America, I must have been living here 2 weeks when I turned on the news one day, and a very famous, I think he was a football player, his name was Len Bias, that name stuck in my head, had just died of a drug overdose, and I couldn't fathom how someone so successful was even needing it to where it killed him, because I just came from a very protective, sheltered world, and so it was a very overwhelming thing for me, but it did something to my psyche, and so I was like, I don't want anything to do with that. And so what I wanted to ask you, because you're obviously the one that's dealing one-on-one with these kids, how do you find them? Like, if there's a kid who needs help, how do you find them, first of all? Because most people are in denial when they're dealing with these issues. And when you do find them, how are you able to convince them to go for help and to stay in the programs that are supposed to rehabilitate them?
Well, there's two aspects to that. Number one, as an addiction counselor, substance abuse counselor, we're not out to find anyone.
Okay.
And number two, there's no convincing an individual, which we understand this as a disease,
okay,
a drug addiction.
Okay.
So when an individual realizes he or she has a problem, recognizes and asks for help, then that's where the work starts. However, I always say that the drug addiction starts way before the drug. It's your behavior, it's your environment, it's your upbringing, it's your lifestyle, it's how you communicate or lack of communication that can lead you to take a substance to make you feel different, to make you feel other than. And that's where a lot of my education came from, my personal experience. So I went into a program and on the 93rd day relapsed. So when you ask the question, why wasn't I convinced, or why didn't you get it, or this is a disease that has no boundaries, zero.
Sad.
And it doesn't matter people, places, or things. A Lynn Bias, a Eason Ramson, a Floyd Burrell, it attacks all.
Do you think it attacks or people choose?
I truly believe it attacks. I did not choose to wake up and say, you know what, I want to be in jail every day. I didn't choose to say I want to wake up and disappoint my mother. I didn't choose to say I'm going to wake up and just destroy my kid's family. That wasn't a choice I made. It was an addiction I had that led me down that path.
Okay. I mean, I'm not trying to pass any judgments because
no.
it's not my forte, but I guess what I'm saying is if I know something is bad for me, I run very far away from it. And so if it is an addiction, don't you try it first before it really starts taking effect and then you start depending on it, I guess? What part of your message is saying that to people out there?
And that's a valid question. That question is still posed today. Is it a choice? And the way I respond is just, that's the picture we paint. I do not believe anyone wakes up every day and choose to sleep and live on the streets and ruin their lives. But to answer your question, I equate it to any other disease. If you know you have it and you got to find a means to treat it, you do so. But some of us have diseases and we chose not to address it for whatever reason.
Right.
Since we're talking about drugs, this is an undefined disease that treatment is not a medicine. It's interaction, it's education, it's growth. So, I would challenge the question to be asked, do you really choose to ruin your life purposely, or is your life ruined through something that's out of your control? And in my instance, it was out of my control until I sought help.
Okay. So, Carolyn, you are involved in the NFL. You're on the board of directors for their alumni. Mm-hmm. What percentage of football players during your lifetime and your involvement with them have suffered with this that you know of?
Oh gosh, I mean, well, back when my husband played, it wasn't so much as the drugs it is today. There, it was basically like marijuana. They did it basically just like as a recreational, drug. Today, the kids are starting so much younger. And I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of education. And it was even, you see, like there again, with the players, and it's when they came into the league and they're looking up to a lot of these other players, but this is how they got hooked, because the other players are saying, okay, now you're in the club, now you're one of us. And so whether you're an athlete or just a normal person, everybody wants to be liked and you want to be into that little club. And so you do these things not knowing the consequences. So it all evolves back around to education.
You think in this day and age that people don't know the consequence? I think if there's one thing people know the consequence of, is trying that stuff. I mean, I'm just offering my, because we're having a discussion.
But
giving my feedback.
Always think it can never happen to them. And this is what they always think in their minds. And they're saying, even with the athlete, they're thinking, well, I go out on that field every day, I work out, I do this, I do that. So there's nothing wrong with me in getting a little high. But then it grows from one little high up into another. But when they're doing it, they think I'm this big, strong athlete, so whatever happened to someone else, and they could have the history and know about what has happened to another athlete, but your mindset is saying, this will never happen to me.
Ego.
Well, not only the mindset, let's also add your body makeup. You know, Carolyn brings up a very important point, and you ask a very challenging question. I know the consequences. I've seen what it does. So why do I continue to do it? Not choose to do it. Why do I continue? This is, using drugs can start off experimental. Some of us can use it recreational. Some of us abuse it. Someone like me, we're addicted to it. So the question is, where do you line up in that stage? Some people can have a drink and walk away. You know, someone can smoke a marijuana joint and not ever pick it up again. But some of us can't. So that's the challenging question. Do you see the damage it does? Why continue to do it?
Or why even try it?
Well, I would go a step further. Why even do it? See, trying it is, you already did it, you know? But as Carolyn said when we spoke at the top of the show, we knew each other way before it happened, but what brought us together in this forum is an overdose from a 14-year-old child. So
And
the
this
question
was
could
the
be posed
first
to her,
time
could
she
pose to
had
her,
taken
why
it.
did she do it? Just
To please the friends. To fit in.
It could be a number of things.
Yeah.
It could. You're very right. Peer pressure. You know, what was going on at home? What was not going on at home? What was going on at school? What was not going on at school? What was going on within her? There's a lot of questions that can go answered or unanswered. Why you do what you do?
Well, I've been living in the United States for 26 years, and for my entire life that I've lived here, this has been a subject that I hear people talking about all the time. I see people dying of. I see people addicted. I mean, even the celebrities, the sports people, it doesn't matter how successful you are. It does not discriminate. But I think in the end, we all have choices. And obviously, you said it's some people's personalities, and some people just try it, not thinking they're going to become addicted. But we can all sit in little groups like this and have endless discussions about it. The three of us together today, obviously, we want to reach people. We want to get a message out there. What do you think the message is that needs to get out there? And in addition to the message, what is the action that needs to go with the message to start creating change? Or is it possible?
It's always possible. And my strongest message that I always send when that question is asked is, we as a society, we have it backwards. And what I mean by that is this. As our kids are 6, 7, 5, 3 playing t-ball and soccer, the grandparents, the aunties, the uncles, the parents, the cousins, they're all there at the game. And then when they get in middle school, you probably have an uncle, an auntie, a mother, a brother, they're at the game. And then when we get to high school, you probably have an older brother or a cousin. Right here, they're not peer pressure. There's no enticement. As we get older, as we grow, as the peer pressure really falls on our shoulder, that's when the family needs to be with the adolescents. So I feel we have it backwards. Let's have 80 people at the classrooms and the functions when they're in 10th, 11th, 12th grade, and not 80 when they're at 3rd, 4th grade.
Okay. So the problem is, though, a lot of times when families realize that they have a family member who's got this problem, it's beyond the point of where they can handle it themselves. So what do you suggest? Because you meet with schools and you're with the 49ers and you have been working in this cause for many years, based on what you've told me. What would you say to parents now? Because it's not something that just for my family or your family or just because you got a divorce, because we've discussed that it doesn't discriminate. It can happen to anybody. What do people need to be, especially parents? Because as parents, we're still responsible for our kids, those of us who have kids. And I think, as we all know here, we're all parents, that parenting doesn't ever stop. Because you get finished with them, you ship them out, and then you have the grandkids coming in, right? How do we keep the types of relationships that we need to maintain with our kids to know when their behavior is changing? And how do you identify the change in their behavior is related to some form of drug?
But
problems.
it's back to education. And I think parents should fight harder to have the education in the school system. When we tried through the NFL Alumni, because we knew that the kids looked up to the athletes, and we went to numerous schools offering to bring this program into the schools, no charge, nothing. And we knew that this program would really work. But for whatever reason, whether it was political or whatever, a lot of the principals and the people within the schools, they have their heads in the sand and they're saying, we don't have a drug problem at our school. But we knew better, because we had formed kids there that trusted us and they would tell us what was going on. But the whole NFL alumni drug program is not to say your school has a problem. What we want to do is to give the kids the necessary tools to be able to say no.
Prevent the
prevention.
problem.
It's prevention. You know, President Reagan came up with the just say no.
Right.
But it did not go far enough. Okay, you're saying no, but why are you saying no?
Right.
We want to give the kids the tools that when they say no, they can tell you exactly why I'm saying no. Because this is harmful to my body. It does not just destroy me, but my family, the community, everybody that's involved. And so when they say no, it's a strong no,
right.
And they can tell you why. But it's really very hard, even though a lot of the schools, which we commend them, they do have drug programs,
yes.
But you just can't stop with just one program. You need to broaden the scope and reach out to other organizations.
So are you saying then that you've gotten resistance to some of the schools when you've come in and offered to give this program free of charge and of your own time?
We're not saying that it has happened. It continues to happen.
That blows my mind.
But like Carolyn said, the question was asked, where are the parents involved? See, that's where it stems from. If your parents are pushing for a better gym for the basketball team, a bigger swimming pool for the players, swimmers, where's pushing for education around drug use? We have kids on campus who are drinking and smoking every day. We have athletes who are taking steroids at the age of 16. I know this from a fact because my kids are athletes. So we have this happening on the schools, and when parents like me hear it, and parents like Carolyn hear it, we're there to support. But it, like you said, it takes more than 2 or 3.
Oh, this kind of makes me sick, because it's such an epidemic, it's such a problem, it's such a detriment to our society, because so many kids are afflicted by this. We are running out of time, but what I'd like us to establish before we close the show out today is ways that you guys would like to suggest to other school districts, or what you have in mind that we can do to get these schools to acknowledge the need for these programs within their structure. Because I cannot think, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this, I have young adults that I raised, they're my kids, and I can see that there's drugs. It's almost like it's a cool thing. It's like as common now as having a beer. Yeah. And I am not real familiar with all the stuff, the types of drugs that people take, unless I see something in the news. But I know it's there. So what do you want to say that to viewers, that maybe if everybody takes a responsibility, we can get more schools to incorporate programs that will educate children, so that young girls like the 14-year-old who died from taking ecstasy once doesn't have to repeat history and take another life. Right. What is it the schools need to know, or people need to know, to impress upon the schools the need for these programs? I don't know which one of you want to answer.
Well, we have a drug program that we have at the NFL Alumni building, and it's October 25th. And we have a school, St. Pius School. This will be our 10th year. They have always came. John Henry's Ford School, they bring 72 students. So if anybody out there would like to become involved, just call the NFL Alumni office. We would be more than happy to go to your school, because this is something that we feel so strongly about, and we know that the kids, like I said before, they look up to the athlete. So to have an athlete to come in here and say, this is what I did, these are the mistakes that I made, and I want to be able to let you know these are the things that you need to watch out. And all we want to do is just give them the proper tools to be able to lead a productive and a healthy life without drugs.
Okay, good. I can't wait to get as many of those athletes as you can get me here on the set, so I can talk to them, and then I will personally distribute the shows to different schools, and we can start there. Right?
Yes, definitely.
We all have to stop talking and we have to act. We've all talked and talked and talked and talked. Let's make some changes. Whatever that takes, somebody has to start somewhere.
Right.
And I truly believe so many young kids look up to these athletes. So, guys, you played and you won. Now you still have to win. You have to win the hearts and the trust of these young people and be a light and a guide for them. And Jennylyn show is the perfect place for you. So is there anything else that you are currently working with kids now, right? In
Yes.
schools. Where are some of the places you're working with the kids?
Well, we had Ralston Middle School, City College of San Mateo, Kenyatta College.
Okay.
So we used to just work with all emancipated kids, foster children, treatment centers. So it's across the board in San Mateo County, San Francisco County.
As always, when we're making a difference in the world, the time flies.
Wow.
We're out of time, but thank you so much for that.
Thank
And
you,
Carolyn,
Jennylyn.
I
Thank you.
know that you're going to do, you guys,
Excuse
we
me.
all have one thing in common: keeping kids safe,
And
keeping
educated.
kids in a place where they can enjoy the best life possible. And so this is just the beginning. We just scratched the tip of the iceberg. We're going to be working together a lot, and I'm hoping that we can convince kids that drugs are not good for them, and to get them to just make healthier choices. That's what I always say: make the best choices. Each choice has a consequence, and most times we know the consequence. So let's make the choice that will result in the best consequence. So thank you so much,
Thank
both
you.
of
Thank you for having me.
taking the time and coming here. I think this was a great show. I think that we're dealing with a topic that needs a lot of energy. So we're going to give it to that. So thank you for joining the Jennylyn Show. Thank you to my crew. Thank you to the guests. And thank you to every person out there in the world who's trying to take some kid or somebody away from drugs, because we all know they're not good for anyone. Anything abused in life does not serve you.
Very well
Thank
said.
you so much for joining me today.